before we get started on this, I'm going to mention, if you want to speak to either of these items, 9 or 10, please fill out a blue form. Randy will have it back there and specify the item that you want to address, and then get it up to us. Randy will get it up to us. So be aware of that. The other thing I'd like to mention is on the item 10, that's going to be a long run. We probably will take a break partway through that. Okay, with that in mind, Scott, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President, Price, Commissioners, Director Talbot. This is a damage claim appeal, damage claim number 15076. This is a damage claim that we took in 2014 grazing season involving domestic sheep and trophy game damage. Josh Longwell, the claimant, gentleman there, and Frank Robbins, also with Josh, are the claimants. Luke Ellsbury, the large carnivore biologist from Cody, was the department investigator on this case. Long story short is that the claimant put in for $46,486.50 for damages to domestic sheep by trophy game. The department's investigation and recommendation is $16,553. That is based on that the claimant did not meet the statutory and regulatory requirements with regards to damage claim payments. Mr. Longwell will come up and present his side of the damage claim affidavit and the claim and why he's appealing with some data, followed by Luke Ellsbury. As in the past damage claim appeals, you have the commission, you may vote to approve the department's recommendation, you may vote to modify, or you may vote to deny the department's recommendation as per Wyoming statute. So before I ask Mr. Longwell to come up, does the commission have any questions?
Do you have any questions of Scott? Okay, Scott, go ahead.
Mr. Longwell, Mr. Robbins, would you please come forward?
I'm Frank Robbins, and Josh, my son-in-law. We were here last year, okay? And we were similar subjects. Just a little bit of history, I think. There's some new members on the commission for one thing, but what I'd like to say is that we brought to you last year a number of issues of claims, pointing out that game and fish is not covering the cost of these animals, killing the grizzly bear and the wolf. And we showed you last year pretty detailed stress-related pounds lost, all of that, remember? With a accumulation of around $500,000 cost associated with that. The studies have shown that it's around $100 pounds per animal. These animals are having to live in that stressed environment. The other issue that was discussed, and I think I was pretty straightforward about the harassment that I've been receiving, or we have been receiving as ranchers up there running sheep on our own property. And the fact that the line was drawn, across the lines, and we're going to basically come after you. And I said then that it's going to stop. Okay? I'll let you with that. I got an arrogant letter back from the Game and Fish. I call it arrogant. Basically telling me that it's none of my business. They're going to take care of their business, or they won't take care of their business.
So, President, what can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Roberts, you're here on the damage claim. Would you please
This is a damage claim, brother.
focus your comments on the losses you've incurred, please?
I'm going to get that real quick. Okay.
Hope so.
Yeah. And so I asked the commission to stop it. Get the Game and Fish to stop it. It did not stop. We've been harassed all winter, and the fact is that the BLM was brought into it through the Game and Fish, and their guy was given insubordination for his actions. And I want an answer from the Game and Fish as to what they did to their side of that deal, Game and Fish people that were involved in that. flying an airplane, doing outside of their job description and everything. It nothing to do with game fish work, but they were doing BLM work at the time. So anyway, saying that, issue we're having is that in this claim particularly, you're trying to say to me, or they are, that we are declaring, you're declaring home range for certain places. You're calling these lines again, saying what is home range. We range lamb. You know what that means is our sheep do not come in. They do come closer to the house, and we've got documentation to show that they range their lambing in a 3,000-acre river bottom with lots of cover and so forth. That's the situation we found ourselves in last year. This problem can be solved, the cost to be taken care of, if you give the 3 to 1 like you do out on the range. That's all you got to do. That's the discretion of game and fish. They decided they didn't want to do it that way. And so they tried to say that's 1 to 1 because it's on range. We lost all of our sheep on the so-called home range. It's 225 lambs. Lost by grizzly bear, wolves, black bear, and lion. Okay? That occurred last spring in 1 month. That is the reason we're here. These ewes are out on the range. They're within miles of my home, and there's no way. The game and fish folks, I'm going to say this as far as their part of it, the people on the ground, other than the one that got involved in the airplane incident, have done their job. And we have no complaint about what they've done. They have done appropriate. The problem is that you're not paying us for what's going on. The free. If you're doing that, we wouldn't be here over that claim today. Because it would match up pretty close to the claim that we're talking about. Almost exactly. So what we want you to do is if you're range landing out there, all land is range. Okay? And if that's where the killing is taking place, which it was, it took place there in the winter during winter, or in the spring during winter. And we only lost two ewes the rest of the summer in the mountains, where you would think you would have the big issues. So the issue was on the creek bottoms, and it was spring, and we had all the markets show up. The game and fish is responsible for these animals. You're taking on that responsibility, and you call them yours. You claim them, and you own them. You need to pay for them. It's not my responsibility to pay for these animals to be there, and to eat my sheep. My cattle eat. The cattle deal was okay. We had no problem with the cattle. Y'all paid on that, or what they killed. And so we're asking, this is where I'll leave you today. We asked them to give us 3 to 1. I want you to contact my lawyer. I've already prepared a lawsuit. It's based on what we determined. I'm not threatening you here. This is not what you do here is not going to necessarily change what's going to happen, but it will. It's going to vary. I've got a lawsuit prepared. I want you to contact my lawyer and tell her what you're going to do, because you're not willing to deal with your own people as a game and fish, and I guess you're going to leave it to somebody like me to hold people accountable for what they do wrong. That's the job. I'm certainly going to do that. And so the lawsuit is prepared, and it includes not only damages of last year, but this year, and it will include this if this is not, we don't deal with this in an appropriate manner. So,
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Would you please get to the point of the claim?
The claim is I want you to pay me the 3 to 1, which would be on the 70-something lambs that you verified. Pay us 3 to 1 on that. That's all the problem.
Okay, and that's the information that we have you're presented both ways. With the 3-to-1, and then the game and fish people or employees, but they reduce that except for those 2 U's, right?
No, you only pay this 1-to-1.
Yep, on those 2 U's.
No, pay this
There were
1-to-1.
3-to-1 on those, but the rest of it, we allowed 1-to-1.
1-to-1 on all the lambs killed.
Okay, so that's the point of there.
That's the point of contention.
Okay, I think at this point we understand that. I'd like to move ahead on this. I have no blue sheets or anything like this. So this, okay, then
Thanks, Josh, you got something.
Luke, come up and give your presentation, please.
I think just to reiterate where Frank's at, and to make sure I was the guy on the ground, I deal with your guys, and they do an excellent job. They do what they can within rules where they're at. But when you're talking about 3,000 acres, and you're talking about 5.5 miles of creek bottom, willows up over top of your head, cottonwood trees, brush everywhere, there's no way you can find every lamb. There's no way you guys are going to send your guys in there when we've got grizzly bears, lions, black bears, and wolves in those creek bottoms. That's where they're living. We spent numerous hours with airplanes, guys on both sides of the creek, in buggies and trucks, dogs in there trying to get these things out. We night locked them into electric fences. All we did was bum more lambs that way. So we've done everything we can to try to get these predators out of there, and work tremendously to do it. There's no way you can find them. When you've got a grizzly bear sow and cubs, we don't know how many she's packed off in the willows with her, how many she's ate. When you talk about a lamb, they're about this big, size of a small football. To try to find all those in 3,000 acres with brush like that is impossible. That's why we're here, is to get paid 3-to-1. This isn't a home range, this is pasture, range land. Every time a predator walks through those things, they would move those ewes 2.5 miles every night. Those ewes would be scattered out as far as the eye could see in that pasture. The next morning, all the ewes and what lambs could make it would be on one end. And you'd start there and you'd go back 2.5 miles and pick lambs up everywhere. It's 55 dead lambs that we verified. Bear kills 22 or 3 that were verified lion kills. So when they come through there, and those big predators went through, they scattered everything. So that ewe takes off and she never looks at that lamb again. And so that's why we're here, is to get paid for those.
Okay, that's your Josh.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's right. Okay, do you have any more to say on that? I think we understand where your position is. Questions, have any more to listen on that? Okay, now we need to listen to the Game and Fish's presentation, please. I think Luke.
President Price, members of the commission, Director Talbot, thank you for taking time to hear today on the appeal for damage claim 15076. Up here you can see the amount claimed, $46,486.50, with the department's recommendation of $16,553. So I'll reiterate a little bit of what you guys have already heard from Zach this morning. I'm going to go through a little bit of damage claim regulation that leads to our recommendation, how that regulation applies to the area involved in this claim, and then we'll go through some differences on the calculations. So basically the regulation governing trophy game damage is Chapter 28, Section 3, livestock damage by trophy game animals. And that states, except as specified in the subsection A of this section, the department shall only offer payment for damage to individual livestock confirmed by the department or its representatives as having been injured or killed by a trophy game animal. So if we move a little further down into section A, and it's a pretty long definition, but we'll go through a little bit. In geographic areas determined by the department to have terrain, topography, vegetative characteristics that influence the ability of the claimant and the department to find missing calves and sheep that are believed to have been damaged as a result of a trophy game animal, the department shall utilize the methods, factors, and formulas in this subsection to determine the amount to compensate any landowner, lessee, or agent for calves and sheep missing as a result of damage caused by a trophy animal. So if we go a little bit further in, we do find this is the subsection containing some of that language for the methods and factors. And for the purposes of this, we'll refer to chapter 20, section 3A as open range, describing open range versus a pasture. And so verified damage in an open range setting for grizzly bears and mountain lions is a multiplier of 3.5 to 1 for individual heads of sheep and calves. And that's for in areas that are occupied by grizzly bears. In areas that are not occupied by grizzly bears, it's 3 to 1. In a pasture setting, the claimant is only eligible for payment of 1 to 1 for individual livestock confirmed. So if we apply this to this claim here, the department verified 73 lambs and 1 ewe as killed by grizzly bears and mountain lions in a pasture setting. We also verified 2 ewes as killed by mountain lions in an open range setting. So those 2 ewes would qualify for that 3.5 to 1. In addition, Wildlife Services was looking at other kills in the area, specifically a red fox actually was doing a little bit of damage as well. So these are a couple of Google Earth images. If we look on the left, it's an area, this is an image off Google Earth of Upper Elk Creek drainage. And it's open range that we feel describes the characteristics of Section 3A. We see a lot of topography there, a lot of vegetation, very hard to find missing animals in that setting. On the right is a pasture setting, and highlighted is the pasture where the majority of the damage actually happened. Again, a Google Earth image. And we see the irrigated bottom here, or you see the off the left. Well, just to show you over here. This is Owl Creek coming down here, the fence line following the Owl Creek there, and then the sheep in this pasture. So just one more kind of aerial image just to give you an idea of the area. You can see the yellow outline of the pasture in comparison to open range, where we have verified sheep and calves both and applied the multiplier within the blue circle. So claim losses, and this is according to the claim affidavit. I think you guys probably have in your packets. I brought one as well. The claimant applied a formula to all 76 sheep, regardless of the setting, whether open range or pasture. So if we break that down and look, we had 55 lambs that were confirmed as killed by grizzly bears. You see the 3 right after that is the multiplier applied for a total of $33,165. Mountain lion, he applied the 3.5 to 3 ewes for a total of $2,467.50. If we look at lambs killed by a mountain lion, we had 18 lambs, again with a multiplier of 3, for $10,854, for a total of $46,486.50. So if we look at how did we come up with our recommended payment? Well, according to the damage claim affidavit, we had 152 missing sheep from the herd at the conclusion of the 2014 grazing season, and it was claimed on an open range setting. The 2 ewes verified that were verified by the Department of Open Range actually qualify a claimant for that 3.5 to 1 payment set forth in Chapter 28, Section 3A. The additional 74 head of sheep, that would be 73 lambs and 1 ewe, we felt were verified in a pasture setting, and they received the recommended payment for only those verified individuals. So basically 1 to 1 or no formula. So the claimant used the multiplier for all of his sheep, which was the main reason for the partial pay recommendation from the department. So this is a table we put together. It's side-by-side comparison, so you guys could see where the differences lie in the calculations. And if you look, we'll start with grizzly bears. You can see the multiplier of 3, where the department left the multiplier out. Same with the mountain lion, lamb in a pasture setting. And then the difference in the ewes, we had no claim of a pasture setting from the claimant. So he claimed all 3 ewes at a 3.5 where the department only had 2 ewes in open range setting and 1 ewe in a pasture setting. So we come up with a total of 16,553 from the department. Some additional efforts by the department. We did capture 1 grizzly bear, 1 black bear, and 1 mountain lion from the sheep herd last year during the month of May. We also did, Josh already alluded to this, we loaned them some electric fence material to do a night pen, trying to keep the predators out at night, but the sheep had a difficult time adjusting to that, so it was only used for 3 nights. When we did not have damage during those 3 nights, but again, the sheep had a hard time adjusting. And then we also spent 44 man days of effort within the, trying to take care of trophy game damage for full cattle and sheep on this place. And that was between 3 individuals, myself, Kyle Bells, and George Gorson, Zach Gregory, who was our temp last year for the Pine Grove. So with that, I guess I'll take any questions that the commission may have.
President,
Selmy?
can you go back to that map of the open range and the pasture?
The overall aerial, or
I'll go back again. Yeah. So where did you find the dead sheep?
they would have been, most of them were down on this end of the pasture, although they were spread throughout within that red out or the yellow outline.
And in the open range, what'd you see on the 2 ewes up in the open range part?
That'd be correct.
No, it's not. So where's that about? I mean,
It would have been on this side, actually a little bit probably south of this. This is looking west up the Owl Creek drainage. Most of the sheep are run over on the south side.
Did you look for other sheep up there? Did you look for other dead sheep up there in the open range part? Or?
We don't as a department specifically. We respond once the livestock producer calls us and has found something. If we're in there and we find something, absolutely we'll look at it. But typically we don't spend a lot of time ourselves looking. We respond after the fact.
And how is Wildlife Services, how are they involved?
They actually are involved when we have something other than a trophy game animal doing damage to sheep or livestock, such as in this area, wolves are considered a predatory animal. It's outside of the trophy game zone. So they do a lot of work with the wolves there, coyotes, fox, that's anything that's designated a predatory animal and not a trophy.
Was this when we had your wolf? This is in May. When did the thing go south? Oh, it's a predator.
Do you have any verified or confirmed kills from either the predators from Wildlife Services? That's been taken care of? Or?
Yeah, Wildlife Services deals with all of that other stuff.
Wolves and stuff.
That's right, in that area, yeah. And Josh would be able to speak to that better than I would, just because we don't get affidavits or anything from predatory animals. So I know they did do some work down in there.
But there are no wolf kills. Well, this is in the predator zone still.
It is, yes.
Okay, so you didn't verify or confirm any wolf kills in this?
Not in the sheep.
You didn't find any. Wildlife Services didn't find any.
I don't know about Wildlife Services. I believe they did take 1 wolf out of the sheep last spring that was hanging around the sheep.
Do we have other questions, Commissioners?
We ask
Yes, Mark.
the other
Josh.
Josh.
Okay.
Could you tell us about the Wildlife Services? Is there any part of that story?
Wildlife Services came in to help us with we're turning dogs loose, trying to catch lions, trying to catch bears. Wildlife Services came in there and actually jumped a wolf out of there the morning they were in there and killed that wolf. No wolf kills. We didn't get any kind of damage from them or help because We're in the predator zone, which is another one of those imaginary lines we have, that if you're on the trophy side of that line, now you get paid. I'm on the predator side of that line, so if a wolf kills on my side of this imaginary line, now that they're protected again, we still don't get paid. As we look at this map, I already had it up there, that yellow line on the right-hand side is a paved road. The other side of that is where there was other sheep killed, and there again, there's another 2.5 mile creek bottom that's completely full of brush that's inside of there.
We have the map again.
Trying back to that.
No.
And as you can tell, they took out one grizzly bear. At one point, we had 3 black bears in a tree, and they could not harvest them. They had to go down and get permission before they could kill those 3 black bears. So in the meantime, 3 bears get down out of the tree. We turned dogs loose. They killed 1 bear, so we still got 2 bears in our sheep. And following that, we had more kills. We trapped Wildlife Services and the game fish.
Who killed the black bear?
Wildlife Services guy was actually the one that seen it. It was, if I'm not correct, it was your dog's Luke or some of these guys' dogs. It was an effort to try to get these predators out of there. It wasn't just a one-time deal. They captured a grizzly bear. After that, there was another grizzly bear in there killing. They trapped and killed a mountain lion. After that, there was more lion kills. So it wasn't just a one-time deal, you guys. This was a month-long, day in and day out, 44 days. I had them on minus 15 days, so every 2 days the game and fish was there. And we had predators in these sheep trying to range land, and they would scatter them every night. We had guys that would stay in pickups with spotlights all night trying to keep them out. And we did everything we could to try to deter this.
Where was it? Okay, go back to the lines. So where were they with the spotlights? Up in that rough country or down in the pasture?
Down in the pasture. Once we left this pasture, we only lost 2 lambs all year. Everything we lost was right there in that bottom because there were so many predators in there. And every time we went in there to get these things out, and I think Luke will testify to this, it was in that creek bottom. We didn't go out here on the hay fields. Everything went back to that creek bottom where it's overgrown with willows and trees and brush. That's where everything happened when we were trying to find these bears and these lions. That's where they go. As soon as daylight hit, that's where they head. So that's where all of our efforts went. But you cannot walk through there. And if a grizzly bear's in there, I'm not sending my sheep herder in there, and I'm not sending my guys through there to try to find a football-sized dead lamb.
What? You finished for?
That's a pretty good story, Alan. So when do you land? In March?
Sir?
You land in March. You don't
First
land
of
in
May.
Oh, 1st of May.
1st of May to the 1st of June. As you can see, I don't know if you've got the same thing they've got. We started May the 4th, went to July or June the 6th. And that's when all them, besides the October kills, that's when everything was killed. It's right there in that 1 month, and that mostly in that pasture and across the road.
So down in the right-hand top corner, is that the ranch house? Is that your headquarters?
Yes, sir. It'd be on this one. Yeah, down here at the bottom, the bottom left.
Well, bottom left's the headquarters down there?
Yes.
So that whole creek bottom to the left of the yellow line, that's where the killing was going on?
To the left of that, and actually, if you look from the house, you can see that you could throw a rock from that house, and there was 3 dead lambs there from a grizzly bear from that house in that creek bottom.
Is there a fence? The fence, is there a fence, that kind of crooked line that comes down along the creek? Is there a fence there?
Yes, sir. There is a fence there. That is not the fence. The fence goes back and forth on both sides of the creek for water on both pastures. But there is a fence line there.
There is a fence line there. And do your sheep stay predominantly in this pasture, or is this where they do the grazing?
Yes, sir. On the right-hand side would be the sheep. On the left-hand side is where I keep our cows and calves. And once again, on the cow side of that fence, we had grizzly bear kills in there last year and again this year.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner, do you have any other questions? I guess I'll ask Josh, you done speaking on that? Okay.
Mr. President, Commissioner Director, I guess I'm going to have to provide some clarification. I think now that Josh has spoken, so we're absolutely clear on our investigation with regards to the open and pasture setting.
President Price, members of the commission. So The main reason for our recommendation is because all the kills were found within that pasture setting. What we felt was an enclosed pasture there. We never found anything in the creek bottom off that side. So being a flat, irrigated, enclosed pasture, we felt that we would find everything in the pasture.
How many sheep did you have in that pasture? About.
There was 500 ewes that were lambing in there at the time. And when you get down in that creek bottom, like I said, if you don't know what the size of a lamb looks like, it's small. And we would find lambs one day, and the next day you'd go back and you'd find more lambs. That in that open pasture, irrigation ditches, they are very, very small. I think the other thing that needs to be brought up with these mountain lions, we had kills that, if I'm not mistaken, there was a lot of questions going on between Wildlife Services, between Game and Fish, and myself as to what we were dealing with, because there were so many predators coming in there at night. We had nights where we had bears, black bear, grizzly bear tracks, mountain lions, a female lion with cubs, or a sow bear with cubs. And so we had different tracks and different kills everywhere. It was just like a slaughtering out there. And so we'd go through there trying to pan out what was going on, and at times everybody would throw their hands up and say, well, this has got marks or holes or bites or we don't know what. But even some of them, those mountain lions, would play with those baby lambs just like a cat plays with a mouse, and they would just have pinholes where they either stepped on them or they just batted them. They would not confirm those because there was not an evident bear or bite mark in the head where you have a top and bottom jaw that holes in their heads. But these things literally would crush their skull. I mean, bite a hole in their skull, and instantly they were dead. And not only that, the ones that didn't have a mark on them, because these ewes were lamb, and you would lay down the lamb, the bear would come through, and maybe she had 1 or 2 lambs. They're not big enough to make it 2 miles with mom, and she's gone. They wouldn't have a mark on it, but they'd be laying there, and she'd never even get a chance to lick them and clean them up. They were dead. So they moved literally from one end of that pasture to the other end, and all be balled up every morning. We'd go out there and we'd have killing. You knew as soon as you drove up or it got light enough where you could see. If they were scattered out, you didn't have anything in them. If they were all balled up or in 2 big bunches separated, you knew you had something in there. And they left lambs everywhere.
How many total loss did you have? You know, they confirmed.
So they confirmed 73. We haven't even got into what they bummed. We bummed 48 lambs that we ended up having to feed all summer, which I incurred extra cost on buying milk replacer, which is $75 a bag for a 25-pound bag. So it takes me 2 bags a week to feed them. Somebody else to feed them, which is another job we don't have time for. And then on top of that, then we creek fed them until we got ready to sell them. So those lambs had additional cost to get them ready to sell. When we got ready to sell them, those lambs were 35 pounds or $35 a head less than the lambs I brought off the mountain. So I had extra costs. They weren't as big and they didn't bring as much money as the lambs that went to the mountain and stayed with their mothers.
The question I had is how many dead lambs did you find that were not confirmed?
That was the 152. Anything that was not confirmed that was a dead lamb, we put in the pile. Anything that we thought maybe was something else or was this or was that went to the dead pile. And we kept track of 152. And so at the end of the year, there was 273 total lambs that didn't make full market value. At a price of a 100-pound lamb bringing $2 is $54,600. So we're asking to be paid 3-1 to get to the 46. I've got extra costs on my milk. I've got extra costs in guys and their time. Every time this happened, I had 2 or 3 guys, whether it be myself, my herders, we had trucks, 4-wheelers. We'd spend half a day, 3/4 of a day trying to help these guys get bears out of there, trying to figure out, run dogs, catch dogs. The airplane was there. There's just a lot of extra stuff that goes in this that we have to pay for. That comes out of our pocket. When you're losing that many lambs, we went from 130% lamb crop range lambing to an 88% lamb crop. If these things are left alone, you stay out of them. These ewes do excellent. You start harassing them and they get stirred up. They said 44 man days. I got 15 days, so every 2 days something comes through and boogers each sheep. They don't stand a chance on having a lamb, and we're paying for that. And this is clear down. This is below his house. I've got kids. He's got grandkids. They can't play there anymore. This thing is loaded with predators. And here, this is a whole other issue. But we've got this corner of the state that we keep jam-packing full of grizzly bears, wolves, lions, and black bears we can hunt. But at the same time, we are just covered up with these things.
Let's always clarify things then. This pasture is fenced.
Yes,
On
sir.
all sides.
Yes, sir.
And when the predation takes place, the predators come out of the creek bottom, come in, get into the sheep, and then do the damage there. Do the sheep ever break out of this pasture?
No, they might get out on that road, that's a road on the right-hand side. We have picked them up out there on the road. Once in a while, they'll go, across the creek, but very rarely. They stay pretty much right there.
Okay, so it is, in a way, it is the pasture setting that you're dealing with.
It is a pasture, yes, sir. But when all those predators come out of those creek bottoms and they're grown up, I don't know if you've been in a creek bottom or anything like we have to there. You can't walk through them. You can't see them. They're red willows and cottonwood trees and brush that's over your head. And that's where everything goes to. How many lambs a sow and cub or a cat or a kitten will take back with them, or we find bits and pieces here and there. But when you find a bit or a piece of a lamb, you don't get it verified. You've got to have evident marking. That's why we want the multiplier survey.
Well, are there other questions from the commissioners at this point? Yes, Warren.
Sorry, kid. You okay?
Yes.
So what's he talking about, the two piles? You got a pile of lambs that have verified kills, and you got a pile of lambs that...
We had, Commissioner Anselmi, we had a few, well, we had lambs that we couldn't verify for sure. Just didn't have the markings in them to be able to verify them as either lion or bear killed. There was a fox in there, like I said earlier, killing lambs too. And so we had a lot of trading back and forth with wildlife services on whether it was a trophy game animal or a predatory animal such as the fox.
So you verified 73
lambs.
73.
That's 2 years. 73, 2.
Yeah, 73 lambs and 1 ewe within that pasture.
And what'd you have in the other pile? How many's in the other pile that you can verify? Do you remember that?
I don't have, no.
I think he gave us some number.
How many?
152, sir. And I think there needs to be stated too that some of these other piles of lambs, there's not enough left of the lamb to determine what it was. They've been killed, whether it was just dead, whether they just fed on it. There was a pile of stuff, that limbs and legs and pieces that no verification could be done. And so at the end of the day, I paid for that.
Did you find those in the willows or in the pasture?
Everywhere, sir, in the creek bottom, the pasture. They'd be scattered from one end of that thing to the other. Guys would be driving around on ATVs, just picking dead lambs up from one end to the other.
Mark, are you finished? I think, Keith, are you wanting to speak?
I do. To me, the issue boils down to whether we should use a multiplier or not. And if you look at that map, where most of these losses occur is indeed a pasture setting. If we follow our statutes, we do not use the multiplier. For that reason, I make a motion, we uphold the department's ruling.
Do we want to put that on the floor at this point, Keith? Is there any other comments? I think we better see if there's any more comments. Pat, have any comments?
I don't, well, if it's time for discussion, Mr. President.
So I wanted to have this comment and discussion before we put it on the table. The motion, but we haven't got a second.
So as far as my discussion, Mr. President, I think under our statutory scheme and our rules, that it appears to me to be a pasture setting, and I think having considered everything I've heard today, I mean, it's irrelevant to me as a commissioner that someone has a lawsuit drafted or hired an attorney, so I'm not considering that in any way whatsoever. I'm not considering statements with regard to misdeeds of federal officials or state officials. But considering the facts that I've heard from the Game and Fish's investigation and applying our rules and our regulations, I think we have to uphold the department's recommendation here.
We have a motion that is on the table. I guess,
Anybody else have any other discussion over there?
no discussion over here.
What's wrong?
Well, I think it's pretty evident we need to go off of the department's recommendation regarding section 28.
Let's go ahead and get a second, put it on the table so we can discuss it.
I second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded by Keith and David. All in favor of putting this motion on the table? And all in the motion is to accept the department's recommendation. That is the motion. Correct, Keith?
That's correct.
Yes. Okay, so that's the motion we're dealing with. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. We want any more discussion between the commissioners?
We just took action on it, so I don't think we need any more, Mr. President.
Okay, motion passed.
Just clarifying, the Commission upheld the department's recommendation of paying Mr. Josh Longwell in the amount of $16,553 even. Correct. Thank you.
Okay, I guess the next thing we have is we're going to delve into the big game objectives. Scott Smith. At some point in here, Scott, well, I think we probably need to take a little break. Because you've got about 3 hours of solid information. Okay. Well, the reason I mentioned that is if you find a place for since you want to do it, not we like to do one.
Okay, so just a little, President Price, Commissioner Director Talbot, if I may. So we have 35 big game permits to go through today. It's laid out on your notebooks there on the PowerPoint that will go through region by region. And it is the pleasure of the Commission that after each specific region, that we can take Commission questions and public input, and I think that would be the most expedient way to move through all these.
You might check and make sure that the president heard you.
Go ahead, Scott. Oh, sorry about that.
Okay. All right. So let's just dive right in. So I have a little background for the new commissioners. I do have a handout. And you can grab real quick. Sorry. Sorry. There. Okay, so this is the 4th year of the department's initiative to look at and analyze big game population objectives using a very elaborate, intense public review process. And if you recall, this is the 4th out of 5 years that we're going through all the big game per units in the state. And this kind of review had not been undertaken since the 1990s, and so obviously time to re-engage with the public and have public input on population objectives. And habitat conditions, obviously population dynamics have changed in some herds, and the public's requesting the opportunity to provide us input on the targets that we're setting for some of these herds. In some instances, we have landowner concerns of over-objective populations. In other areas, we have herds that aren't meeting our conservation objectives. So we have a variety of situations throughout the state. As mentioned earlier, in several presentations, including Talbot's, we definitely have acknowledged over the last decade or two, declining deer populations have resulted with public input demand for either a limited quota season where hunter numbers in the field are limited, or other ways to increase the quality of their hunt due to what the public is telling us that it's just undercrowded. So if you recall last year, May and June of 2014, we took 41 big game herd units through this process, and in July, a year ago, the commission approved those 41 objectives. This spring of 2015, some of you participated in this next round of public input. And this year, we're looking at 35 big game herds throughout the state. We used a similar public input process as we had the last 3 years, and that's what I'll present in summary today. So what I passed out in front of you is the definitions of our different types of objectives and our management strategies. So we have 5 objectives that are listed on that handout and 3 management strategies. And I just wanted to make sure you have that in front of you as we go through each herd today. I will describe what the present objective is, what the proposed change, if there is one, and then what kind of management strategy we're employing in those various herds. So just for a quick review, it'll be new to Commissioner Rael and Frank. You have seen these definitions we went through last year. Our traditional department objective was first established back in the early 70s, was the postseason population size. And basically, what this is we call it the post-hunt objective. And following the hunting seasons, our field managers go out and gather necessary population parameters from the specific herd, use those parameters as input variables into a model, and estimate the total population size. And we consider the management goal under this scenario to be within that objective. It's plus or minus 20% of the stated objective. This is what we've been using, like I said, since the 70s. And as you'll see as we go along here, these next 4 are kind of more newer objectives that we offered as options for our field managers to utilize. We have mid-winter trend counts. We first used these in the late 1990s over in the Lander region in the Wigginsford elk herd. And starting in 2012, we expanded the use of this type of objective to statewide opportunities. Basically, what we're doing here is we're not trying to determine the entire population size. Again, we're flying, we're counting animals in the winter on all known winter ranges, and then monitoring that trend of animals on those specific winter ranges over the course of multiple winters. The objective then is compared to a 3-year running average of that mid-winter trend count. So we'll take the last 3 years of those trend counts, average them, and compare that to the objective to determine if we're at, below, or above. Okay. A new one also that came out in 2012 is the landowner hunter satisfaction. And we use this one in areas where it's more difficult to gain access to survey those lands. And so what we do here is we'll actually survey both the hunters and the landowners to see determine their satisfaction with the number of animals in that designated area. What we're shooting for with this objective is a 60% satisfaction, either satisfied or very satisfied with the present numbers, and then we'll adjust management accordingly, whether we're above or below that satisfaction level. The last two objective titles that we're talking about would be a limited opportunity objective for moose or an alternate objective for bighorn sheep. And basically, both of these objectives apply to our smaller either moose or sheep herds. The goal here is to be able to continue to provide hunting opportunities in these smaller populations. Excuse me, but since we don't have survey or census data available in these small populations, we utilize the existing harvest data. So for the moose, we're looking at a 5-year running average of the median age of harvested males, old moose, and we're also looking at the number of days it takes per harvest, so hunter effort. In other words, how many days on average is it taking the hunters to harvest a bull moose. So those are the two parameters we look at under the limited opportunity moose objective. Very similarly for bighorn sheep, applying this to small sheep herds in remote or difficult terrain where we don't have our aerial or population parameters to go on. We'll use the harvested age and hunter success in this case on a 5-year average to compare to our benchmarks. And our benchmarks for sheep would be, we're looking for an average age of harvested rams between 6 and 8 years old and an average hunter success of at least 75%. Those are the parameters that we would use under an alternate objective for bighorn sheep.
Scott?
Yes, sir.
I have a question on this 60% landowner hunter satisfaction thing. How did we come to that reasoning, you know, and then still maintain a scientific type management objective?
Okay, so the scientific part of it is we try to achieve a statistically balanced sample of both landowners and hunters. So hunters is done through our harvest survey, have a questionnaire that we include with the harvest survey, asking them those exact questions: how satisfied were you with the number of animals encountered during the hunt? On the other side, then our field people actually have drafted a standard survey that they actually mail to the landowners within the designated area and follow up if need be to achieve a sample size large enough to statistically analyze the data. The 60% level, I guess, as an agency, we felt that was a reasonable benchmark to measure against. Again, slightly more than half. In other words, slightly more than half of our respondents are either satisfied or very satisfied with what they're encountering. Then felt like we're succeeding in our management efforts.
Okay. I just want to know kind of how you justify, you know, how you justified that. Thank you.
So those are the 5 different types of objectives that the field managers have available to them. We have 3 strategies that we also use in addition to management objectives. We have a recreation, special, and private lands management strategy. Those are also on your sheet there. You can refer to as we go through all these curriculums. And basically, for recreation and special, those are separated by varying levels of buck to doe ratios, what we're trying to manage for within that herd. So recreation, excuse me, for deer, a recreational management strategy would be a postseason buck to doe ratio somewhere between 20 to 29 bucks per 100 does. For bull elk, it's 15 to 29 bulls per 100 cows. And for our pronghorn herds, we do pre-seasons. We do our August surveys on pronghorn. And our preseason ratios we're looking for a recreational strategy is 30 to 59 bucks per 100 goats. For a special hunting seasons are designed then to have even a higher male to female ratio. For mule deer, or excuse me, it's a 30 bucks per 100 goats. And elk, so basically 30 and above. And then, as you can see here, for the points per 100 would be the goal for a special management strategy. And finally, the third one here, the private lands and some herd units where private lands predominate, the public may not always have access. And so it's very difficult for us to achieve management objectives through hunting where a lot of hunters just don't have access. And in that case, we categorize that as a private land strategy. And in this scenario, then the management strategy does not require sex ratio target. 100 bull or bull 100 bull per 100 cow target. So those are the three strategies that we also use in addition to population objectives. Okay, so the procedure for today, again, 35 minutes we're going to go through. We have all of our field managers around the state here and available to help me answer any questions you may have. Like I said, we'd like to do this on a region by region basis, so if it's pleasure of the commission, we could take public input after each region summary is complete. And then once you've had the discussion by each region, we'll ask the department to accept our herd units.
Sounds like a good way.
Okay, very good. So let me just go through a few maps. Since this is year 4 of our 5-year cycle, I just wanted to show some maps of what we're going to talk about today, what we'll talk about next year, what we've already completed. So here on this map, you can see the yellow outlined areas are the herd units that we'll be talking about today. So here we have antelope, and for antelope, I think we're in the neighborhood of 14 different herd units that we're going to talk about today. So everything in yellow will be the herd units that we talk about today. The blue will be for next year. So next year we're down to just 3, Sublette and 2 up north in the Cody region. And everything that's remaining, that's in white, we've already covered on the first 3 years. For moose, today we'll talk about 3 different moose herds. We have the Bighorns, we have Dubois and Jackson moose. Next year we have just 2 left. We have Lincoln moose down here in southwest Wyoming and the Snowy Range. For elk, this year, as luck would have it, we just have 1 herd, Shirley Mountains, that we'll talk about. And then we have 3 left for next year with Shamrock, Medicine Lodge, and the southern South Bighorn herd unit. So as you can see, we're making progress. We're almost through all the herds in the state for elk. For mule deer, we have, what do we have this year? We have 14 herd units we're going to discuss today. Those are outlined in yellow. And then next year we're down to just 2. And the big one will be the Wyoming Range mule deer herd here in blue, western Wyoming. And finally, we have 2 whitetail deer herd units that we'll have a discussion on today, the Black Hills and southeast Wyoming. And as you can see, there's no blue on the map. So once we get through these, that'll be all of the whitetail deer herds in the state will be finished for this first 5-year cycle. And lastly, mountain goats, we have 1 we're going to talk about today, the Palisades herd over here on the Idaho-Wyoming border. And then next year we'll talk about bear tooth up on the northern end of the bear tooth plateau there. So with that, let's get started. And we'll just start right off the top with Jackson. So Jackson, this year Jackson took 3 big game herd units to the public. We looked at Jackson moose, Jackson Bighorn sheep, and the Palisade mountain goat herd. So currently, Jackson moose has a post-hunt population objective of 3,600 animals. The proposal from our field managers in the Jackson region would be to switch from the post-hunt population objective to a midwinter trend count of 800. And for moose, all of our moose herds in the state are managed under the special management criteria. So the proposal that we took to the public was to go from an entire population estimate to a midwinter trend count on the key winter ranges of 800 animals. For Jackson sheep, a similar scenario. Presently, we have the post-on population objective of 500. The proposal is to switch to the midwinter trend count, counting all the sheep on the 4 winter ranges, and using an objective of 400 for the midwinter trend analysis. And all other bighorn sheep herds, they're also managed for a special management strategy. The third one was Palisades goat. Palisades goat. You presently have a preseason trend objective of 50. We're proposing to increase that from 50 to 100 to mirror what the field managers have been documenting the last 4 to 5 years. And that is a preseason trend. So similar to the midwinter trend, this is conducted in alternate years with the state of Idaho. And we do it in August with helicopter surveys looking at all the occupied summer ranges. A little twist there, it's not the winter range survey, it's a summer range survey. Again, the objective that was taken to the public is 120. And the management strategy for goats is also special. So here's a summary then of,
As I read through this here, it's one of the reasons for the Jackson moose herd is that we're really not reaching at 3,600. That was set quite a few years ago, and since then we've had a lot of climb.
correct.
And the 800 will give us a midwinter count on a given area every year. In other words, take a look at that. That's the way you intend to measure whether it's trending up or trending down. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct, President Francis. And then that'll be average. We'll use a 3-year running average so that we can account for variation between winners.
That I understand. Okay, so we're doing 2 things there. One's changing counts, but we're also accounting for the fact that the moose population has declined a lot.
It has. And in hindsight, the old objective of 3,600 was probably too high, and that was just based on the model parameters, the model technique that we were using at the time. Since that time, we have changed, as Daryl had mentioned earlier, to a different type of model, but we're not even proposing to model this population. We just want to go on the actual number of animals we physically count every winter in the core of the winter.
Thank you.
So here's a brief summary of the public input, public review our field managers took in during the meetings. So for Jackson moose, meeting was held in Jackson, a small turnout, and you'll see this is not uncommon for a lot of our herd unit objective meetings. Not well attended this year for whatever reason. But then they also made these proposals part of their season setting process, so that folks that showed up to discuss hunting seasons also were given an opportunity to review the herd units. And in that series of meetings, we reached out to about 60 different publics in the Jackson area. They also met with Jackson Hole Outfitter and Guide Association and held an NGO meeting where we had 34 total attendees. So overall, for the Jackson moose proposal, there was general public support. There was some concern from some of the groups that perhaps 800 was too high based on what we're physically counting at present. Presently, we're counting somewhere in the neighborhood of 250 moose. But the public comments that we got back, they want to see us manage for more moose than we presently have on the ground. So our field managers felt that based on social desires of the public, an 800
objective was a reasonable objective to shoot for the next 5 years and evaluate our management strategies based on that. For the Jackson sheepherd, similar public attendance at the meetings that we discussed the Weimar sheep objective. If you remember, that was a decrease from 500 to 400 using the midwinter trend count. And we received, based on public input for this one, we did not receive any major opposition to that reduction of 100 animals for the objective. And finally, Palisades goat. Palisades goat, to be honest, was more contentious. There was concern raised by Grand Teton National Park and some of the NGO groups. There's concern about the expansion of this mountain goat population into bighorn sheep habitat. And based on those concerns, there was not, they did not support that, managing for that pre-season objective of 120. So that kind of summarizes everything for those 3 herds, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that I could that you may have.
Okay. Commissioners, a question? No commissioners' questions. I do have here a blue sheet. Steve Kirkpatrick will come up and address this item.
President Price, Member of the Commission, Director Collins, Steve Kirkpatrick from Wildlife Federation. A couple of objectives they had a little concerns over, and I might expand on what Scott said. I think they did a great job. Certainly support the game fish on a lot of fronts and other objectives across the state. We did have a few concerns about the mountain goat subject. It's not a stake we're going to die on, but it's just something that to throw out. The concern with the mountain goat issue is the disease transmission between potential disease transmission between wild goats and wild sheep. We know what happens with domestic goats and wild sheep. Science isn't there yet for wild goats and wild sheep. However, I think, and Doug Bremer's here, just correct me if I'm wrong, Doug, but there were 8 goats trapped in Alpine or captured in the Alpine area, and some of those had some diseases that are concerned with bighorn sheep, and I can get into those if you want to. And then they captured, I think, 5 in the Tetons. Those were cleaner, but still had a couple of bugs that were lipotoxin positive. They were stating tuberculosis is one of them. That's still a concern to some of the folks in the veterinary and pathology world. I guess the issue here is the lovely goats. They've done really well, but they seem to be relocating out of the herd unit, if you will, getting into the park. The sheep herd in the park, NGOs have spent over $400,000 keeping that sheep herd, 100 to 150 or so sheep going. That herd is very susceptible to disease that has this blood sampling done. They kind of live in a little isolated bubble, if you will. So don't have many antibodies for these diseases. To simplify it, I would be concerned about diseases that might go to that sheep herd. We bought out allotments, we've helped with research dollars, and like to see just a little bit more caution on trying to keep the goats from getting into that sheep herd. Currently, there's 20 to 30 goats in Grand Teton National Park. Goats have also made it over parts of the Grove Range, South Great River Range. To be very clear, we don't know whose goats are talking. Matter of fact, Idaho's goats are closer to Grand Teton Park than one of those goats. So, but some of my big goats are even. So we just asked to tread on the side of caution a bit. We also, I know the winter count for sheep was only 57. Counting conditions vary from year to year. Maybe have a couple more years of counts to see if they are back up to that 100, 125 level before moving ahead with increasing the objective. But all we asked was that maybe the game and fish pause for a bit, and we're talking about finding a great buffer with the general season, which affect point systems or weighting in your tag. If you hunted in that area, if you general hunt area, you can harvest your goat on a general tag. However, that takes legislative approval. We'd like to see that taken care of first, get a good solid buffer in there, and then work with Idaho and see if they will help collar some goats. But at the Game and Fish, we're going to collar some more goats in that area. Once they're collared in the south end of the herd unit, they're going to try to get some of the north end, which would be the ones closest to Grand Teton National Park, so we're going to support that. So, no big red flag, but we just like to maybe not increase the objective yet, to see what the disease issue, how it plays out. As the veterinarians say, the more research we do on sheep diseases and goat diseases, the muddier the water gets, the more confusing it gets. So, I'd like to see a little more of that done, some more goats collared, and get that general hunt season still first. So that's what the leaders of the Wyoming Wildlife Federation, as well as the Wyoming Wild Sheep Foundation, folks. So the messenger complete. The moose one, just the Wyoming Wildlife Federation commented on it. We'd like to see more moose too. Of course, we saw great declines. The objective was too high at over 3,000. But with the current 3-year trend count since 2008 to 2014, the counts have been, as Scott said, 250 to 300. So I think it almost gives false hope to the public. They put it at 800. There's not the science behind it to put it at 800. There were habitat problems and issues that was flagged by research that's been done in the area. Able to recover substantially, in our opinion, and certainly could take more moose. But given increased tick loads, because of warming temperatures, product artery worms, we have 2 major predators there, can we realistically get to 800? And we don't know what the habitat carrying capacity is from a visual standpoint. So we'd support some lower sort of 3-year trend count. You count to 5,300 to jump to 800 and hope you get there relatively soon. That's possible. Let's answer any questions. Thanks for your time.
Good question. Do you have a real problem with that 800 at this point?
Neither one of these mistakes is going to die on, like you said. That just doesn't seem like it applies science in the data that they've been collecting. They've been flying since 2008 and getting 200 to 300 moose. We'd all like to see more moves. I don't know if we'll, the public is great. Whenever we reach a peak, that's the standard that we set for almost eternity. So we had a lot of years, we want to get back to that 20,000. We had a lot of moves, we want to get back to that 32, 3,600. But times change, habitat changes, disease changes, predator schemes change. I don't see how you can get to 800 in the next several years. But, that was our board and staff's thoughts. Just trying to be realistic, but I know I sympathize and have feelings for cultural shock if we do see the objective that drastic. But sometimes we just have to be realistic.
Do you have any more at this point? I do have another blue sheet that came in. Do you through Steve?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Bob Ward.
Hey, Mr. President, once again, Bob Ward, Wyoming Sportsman for Fish and Wildlife, and I guess I wasn't sure how you wanted to do this. I may have some comments later. I didn't know if you wanted to run through it all and do it, but I guess specific to this presentation.
We're going to go each of these objectives, each of the areas.
Okay.
And then we'll take questions, testimony and stuff.
Well, specific to this, Mr. President, I had a question. I guess I wanted to know how many licenses we had sold when we had the population objective of 3,600 more we're at right now, or where the department thinks we'll be by lowering this objection, how that's going to change the number of licenses that are available.
You try to answer that?
I think our Jackson coordinator does for my better to answer that.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. President Price, Director Talbot, members of the commission. In the late 80s and late 90s when we set that objective, we were closer to 300 in the late 90s, but we had a peak of 500 licenses in this herd unit at one point in the late 80s. And in the late 80s, we were counting 1,000 moose, and then in the late 90s, we were counting about 800 moose. And so where we're at right now is issuing between the 3 hunters that are open there, we're issuing 10 licenses currently for that. And we use an adaptive management approach, so as that population changes, we adjust our hunting season structure. And we're currently at where we feel we can maintain 10 licenses given the calf production and stuff that we see in the population. Should that calf production increase for multiple years, we'll see more adults in the population and we'd adjust that license structure appropriately. But currently 10 licenses.
Okay, could you kind of sit right there for a bit, Doug, I have a question regarding the goats.
And Mr. President, having heard that, our group is concerned, I guess we look at it a little bit different than the last presenter, or the last person that spoke. Our concern is that we're ratcheting down those numbers. Now, our organization fully supports the fact that we need to manage the resource. We shouldn't put more stress on that resource. However, we're concerned if we keep lowering objectives, that we kind of take away the incentive to fix it, to get it back to where it was. And I guess that's the concern we have. And while we're not counting anywhere, we don't have enough to support the level of hunting that we did have, that is the thing that I would hope that the commission would capture, so that, you know, in history, we don't lose the fact that at one time we had more opportunities there, and then we don't look to restore those opportunities. Hopefully someday we'll get management authority over our wolves and our bears, and we'll maybe be able to see a better rebound in those species. But that's the only thing I would ask is the commission somehow to try to capture that so that we don't lose that history over time. Thank you.
Question, Bob, say I have a question, maybe the commissioner.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask one first.
Go ahead.
How is the 800 set with you on the book?
Well, to me, I don't know that you, and I don't know that you've ever been beat up for not meeting objective. I know that landowners have a tendency to complain when you're over objective. I think, to me, the way I look at an objective is it's a goal that the department's working towards, and that's why I would prefer to keep it up higher. Our organization is concerned that we're going from 3,600 to 8. Clearly, we all know and recognize that those population, that population has been impacted. But in short, we support the recommendation of the department. We just ask that you would capture somehow that it is a substantial reduction, and then we look for opportunities to possibly grow that objective if it ever comes there. If we get another where we can count 1,000 moose, I would expect that the department would change that. Does that answer your question?
That was, so basically, you're saying, okay, the 800 is okay for now, but we don't want to throw out a higher chance of moving higher if the public and the habitat support.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I guess my question to you is, you know, could you tell me accurately how many members are there in your organization?
I'd be more than happy to visit with you about that, Mr. President. I don't know that that's relevant to this.
It's relevant because I'm asking it, Bob.
Well,
let me finish.
Yep.
You show up here and you say, we make this recommendation, and so I'm curious, how many sportsmen do you represent in the state of Wyoming?
Well, Mr. President, if Mr. Crane would like to give me his phone number, the members that were at that meeting, I'm sure they would love to call and talk to you. If you want to give me a number, I'd be more than happy to put you in contact.
You're not going to answer my question.
That number is in flux at all times. So I can tell you our numbers have gone down.
I want to know how many.
I can tell you that, Mr. Chairman, we send out an email that's going to 2,000 people right now.
But that's not an answer to my question, Mr.
That's the answer I have. Currently, we have about 2,000 people that I would consider members.
Well, so you understand what I'm asking, Mr. President, if I can ask one more question. I want to know But look at Wallace, a sportsman in Wyoming. How many of them would have a sportsman for Fish and Wildlife, or whatever the name of your organization is today? And you're not giving me an answer to that question. And that's fine. If you don't want to answer it, that's fine.
Mr. President, I did answer the question. We send out 2,000 emails. I'm building that all the time, and it does go through flux all the time. We've had as many as 8,000 people in our database, so it has shrank, but we still have 2,000 people that are on our rolls, if that answers your question.
I'm going to break in. I think we kind of diverged from the point that we were getting at here. Okay. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Doug, the question, what I looked at is, the question was, we were increasing this goat number to 120. Of course, the more fear is that they're going to move into the park. I guess there are already some there. How are we going to manage that?
Mr. President Price and Director Talbot, members of the Commission. Last year, you may remember that during the hunting season, we expanded the hunt area. So historically, that hunt area was just the Snake River Range. And last year, we expanded the hunt area to include the west side of the Teton Range, which is adjacent to Grand Teton National Park. And then this past March, at our public meetings, we discussed options with our publics regarding the type of restrictions that are on this type of license. Currently, there's a statutory restriction that the mountain goat license is a once in a lifetime, same as the bison, bull bison. And our publics would support seeking legislative change to that regulation so that if people wanted to hunt in a low priority or a low density goat area, that they'd have the opportunity to purchase a general license and not be restricted to the once in a lifetime. And so we started talking with our publics about that type of license structure in areas like the Teton Range north of Highway 22. The mountain goats in the Snake Range, thus far, with radio collar data that Idaho's collected and what we've collected, have had a real high fidelity to that real small core area where the hunt area is designated. And we feel that should we modify some of our regulations in the future to provide more hunting opportunity north of Highway 22, for example, adjacent to Grand Teton, we could control some of that dispersal.
That's what.
Yeah, and over the next couple of years, we're going to continue to work with Grand Teton National Park, Idaho, and there's a larger mountain ungulate project that's in place where we're collaring goats in the Cody, in the Snake Range, and in Idaho, and in Yellowstone. And as we determine what those goat dispersal rates are or types of behaviors, we'll be able to address some of those concerns that our publics have raised during this process.
You feel we can manage 120?
Yes. The goats that are in the Snake Range, like I said, have a real high fidelity to that area. And if we, for example, in the next couple of years, we could have a hunting license type north of Highway 22, and we've got a number of publics that expressed interest in participating in hunts in those less dense areas, even if there's not a really well-established population. So I think we have the opportunity to take some of those goats.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Just we're in, Scott, hold up a minute. I have one question.
We're talking about these goats. So you say north of Highway 22, so from 22, then you got past the ski area. And what happens if they go in Grand Teton Park and they start coming back? Then you can't hunt them at Grand Teton Park. I mean, that's where they're headed, right? Is that where you're talking?
Yeah, so based on this map, the Highway 22 is probably in here somewhere. What we discussed last month, as Director Talbot had indicated, we met with Wild and Wild Sheep Foundation and discussed seeking a change in the statute that would create a general hunting license opportunity. And so what we would envision would be maintaining the limited quota license in the core of Area 2 that presently holds 120 goats. And then north of Highway 22, all this country here offering a general license type of opportunity that wouldn't affect your ability to only harvest one mountain goat in your lifetime.
On the west, it'd be the west side of the Tetons.
West side of Teton.
And President Price and Commissioner Anselmi, Grand Teton currently is going through an environmental review process, looking at alternatives that they may have at their disposal to work with the mountain goat population within Grand Teton Park. Currently, basically, if a hunter draws a license for any of the big game species, they are confined to the forest lands of the divide there between, Grand Teton and the Jedediah Smith and the Targhee National Forest. So if a person has a general license, they're not going to be able to participate in the hunt once they cross that boundary. And the park is evaluating alternatives that they have at their disposal to either remove or control that population. We don't know where that environmental analysis will end up.
Where's the dividing line? Is it the top of the Tetons, or where's the park? And there's big much attention.
It's a little bit west of the actual crest of the Tetons, but it's when you're in Idaho looking to the east, it's pretty much that line that you can see the skyline there, maybe a little bit to the west of that. So there's actually quite a bit of habitat outside of Grand Teton where those goats range, and the park has 5 collars out now, and they're trying to determine where those goats are distributed, because they kind of run from the forest down into where Jenny Lake is, Cascade Canyon. There's about 20 goats and everything.
How many sheep did you got up there?
Last time we flew it, I think Steve mentioned we had about 57 on a survey. In 2010, we counted right at just under 100. Population goal for that area is around 150, so we're probably close to that.
I wanted to bring this out because this is kind of an important point. Do we have any more information on this we want to present, Scott?
Well, I think Doug did an excellent job. One thing to follow up, that Doug had previously mentioned, so we have had 4 to 5 mountain goats collared, and at least in the state canyon there, those collared animals are only ranging about 2 miles. So from that limited sample, it doesn't appear that those are major dispersed, at least at this point. So like Steve said, it's still unknown where exactly the goats that are up north are coming from, but they could very well be Idaho, on the Idaho side. As you can see, not that far. Figure out how to run this. Not that far from Idaho over to Grand Teton Park compared to down here, Snake Canyon. And also we have money, and we're going to put out 4 more collars, as Steve mentioned, this summer, spring, summer, or later this summer, and keep monitoring this population.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President,
Yes.
is it possible that any of these goats are coming down out of the Yellowstone? Is there a population there that has some migratory?
Probably not very likely, Commissioner Culver. The goat population in the northeast corner of the park populated Area 1, then have been dispersing down into that crest of Area 3, drifting out into the east towards the North Fork. Most of the dispersal that we believe in Grand Teton probably occurred after that initial goat transplant in Idaho. Typically, when a population gets first transplanted, they explode and really disperse, looking for kind of niches that are unoccupied. And we think that that's right in the late 90s, early 90s, we started getting goat sightings on Highway 22, and we suspect that they originated from that original transplant in Idaho. That's where our goat population came from, too.
Okay,
Back to moose for either one of you. So when we fly, we estimate we have 250 moose or so.
Physically count right in that range.
So why set the population objective at 800? Can you explain that for me?
When field managers evaluate population goals, we often take into consideration biological components as well as sociological factors. And given the overall goal was 3,600, and the feedback we were getting from some of the local sportsmen in Jackson, we felt that there would be a huge sticker shock to going from 3,600 down to 400 or 350. We actually had that as one of our alternatives when we first started kicking this around, and we felt that because the 5-year period following the decline of the population in the mid-80s, and we counted an average of over 825 moose for 5 years following that major decline, And so we felt that was probably a good starting point that the public would still support. And then in 5 years, we could reevaluate where the population's at, given that level or that goal that we set.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. There's some more questions. I think we ought to move on here. Go ahead, Scott. I mean,
Okay, so based on that input, then I guess we'd like to
propose, give us your proposal.
we'd like to recommend for Jackson Moose an objective of 800, Jackson Bighorn Sheep an objective of 400, and Palisades Mountain Goat an objective of 120.
Okay, with that said, motion.
I make that motion, we approve this revised objectives.
I second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. That's good. Okay, now commission discussion within the commission. Anybody want to comment on this?
Sorry, on the whatever we got on our computer, whatever you want to call it. When's the last time, looks like about 98 when we changed the objective last time, is that right? Is that what this line means?
President Price, Commissioner Tommy, for
Moves, I'm sorry.
for moves.
1999.
Okay, it is. Because it was. Okay, it's all good. It's, I'm done, thank you, guys, thank you.
Oh, okay. That's what I was kind of waiting. I thought maybe you.
Well, it looks like the population was decreasing, and we increased the objective, and now to 3,600, when you're saying there was a population decrease in the 80s or an explosion, it looks like an explosion on this thing I have. Then after we increased it.
I think Commissioner Price and Commissioner Anselmi, I think that's an artifact of the computer simulations that were, so different methodology was applied throughout the late 80s. And starting in the mid 80s, we started looking at different computer simulations. And so some of that trend line you'll see on that graph is perhaps an artifact of some of those methodologies. And we're proposing to use methodologies that are more standardized now that kind of take away that computer generated type adjustments that you see.
So when you count these, then you count them, then you extrapolate from there. I mean, you can't fly 10,000 square miles or whatever it is. You just
No, yeah, and there's core winter ranges that those moose have a real high fidelity to. And so as that population fluctuates, the trend information that we get collectively across that entire winter range complex or those riparian areas like the Snake River, there at Hard 6 and the Growlock Range, we kind of get an indice of what that population is doing over time.
Do you have any more questions? All three questions? All three questions? Sure. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We accept the proposal of the deal.
Okay, so let's move on to Cody region. They also took three herd units out to the public this past spring. We have Devil's Canyon Bighorn Sheep. Present objective is 200. The proposal is to slightly lower that to 175. And similar to the Palisades Mountain Goat, this one would be managed under a preseason trend count. In fact, very similar time period, an August time period, looking at summer distribution and counting the sheep in Devil's Canyon in August. And as I mentioned, all bighorn sheep fall under the special management strategy. They also discussed Grable River mule deer with the public. Present objective is 4,000 animals post hunt. They're proposing no change to that. And so it would remain a post postseason objective with a recreational management strategy. And finally, Carter Mountain Pronghorn was taken to the public this year. It presently has a post-hunt objective of 7,000 and recommended that we maintain that at 7,000 under the recreational management. So in summarizing public input, we'll go through species by species. For the Devil's Canyon sheep, meetings held in various communities. Cody, Powell, Level, Whirland, around 100 people attended. The Cody region surveyed the folks that attended their meetings and asked them basically what they felt about the Devil's Canyon bighorn sheep herd, and but over 2/3 or 3/4 felt the numbers were about right, and 22% said they'd like to see even more of those 2 sheep. Major landowner, Wyoming Wildlife Sheep Foundation, Forest Service, all were surveyed as well, and they indicated that about 20 sheep was present. For Graybull River mule deer, similar meetings, Cody, Powell, Keatsy, Graybull, Whirland, a little over 100 attendees. A little over half of the publics that attended those meetings felt managing for 7,000 mule deer was about right. A little less than half felt there was too few. They also surveyed landowners. We had a 29% response rate, and landowners slightly less than half felt there were too many, and a little over 2/3. 1/3 felt they're about right. A little mixed response there between landowners and the public. The regional managers feel that based on all this input, they would propose to keep the objective right where it is. And then Carter Mountain Pronghorn, again, fairly good attendance from those communities, 132 people in total, and they were also surveyed with 70% felt they're about right, 25 indicated too few. Landowner survey response was about 25%, and 68% felt for Pronghorn, at least in the Carter Mountain herd unit, 68% felt the numbers were appropriate, and 14% felt there were too few. So in summary then, I think I might have got those mixed up. But, so 4,000 is a recommendation for Graybull River mule deer, 7,000 for the Carter Mountain Pronghorn, and 175 for Devil's Canyon sheep. Recommendation from the department.
Okay, thank you for that input. I don't have any blue sheets on this, so at this point, Commissioner Frank.
Scott, why, I mean, the Devil's Canyon, those are sheep from Oregon, right?
Correct. That was, I believe those were transplanted from Oregon.
And some from Montana.
As well. 2 transplants.
Okay. As I understand, that sheep herd is doing very well.
In fact, we transplanted, we captured, took 25 out this spring to help control that growing population. And we transplanted those down to some of them. Okay.
But why are we reducing our objective?
So basically, on this one, with a trend count, felt that we also have that plus or minus 20% factor in there. So based on that, felt that even with a slight reduction, it would still mirror what we have presently on the ground. So I guess that would be a fair explanation. So maybe a paper change, but not really anything to affect the management on the ground as far as what we have.
Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Riley.
And to read here, you only have 2 tags up there a year?
Yes. Well, actually, we increased it this year to 4.
The account I see here, they're increasing.
They are. It's a very limited access
private land, restricted access, so we have to work very closely with the landowner, their comfort level, through our field folks working with the landowners to bump that up from 2 to 4. We're going to see how that works. My understanding is they're very isolated in where they're distributed, so trying to provide a quality hunt with 400s will have to work to get them spaced out so they're not all hunting at the same time in the same rural areas.
Okay. This is the proposal that you present to us.
Yeah, so President Price, the department would like to propose 175 for Dallas Canyon Big Horn Sheep, 4,000 for Grateful River Fielder, and 7,000 for Parker Mountain Pronghorn.
Okay.
So moved.
Walk move.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Powder. Any discussion on the commission? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, so let's move over to the Sheridan region. So in the Sheridan region, our manager took 5 big game herds out to the public. As you can see here, we have Powder River mule deer. Current effective for the Powder River mule deer herd is 52,000, based on some recent or past declines. The proposed objective would be to reduce that slightly to 45,000, but maintain the objective type of the postseason, so basically 45,000 deer after the hunting season. And here's one of those private land strategies where the preponderance of land in this herd unit is private, so we will not establish a buck to doe ratio objective or target for this herd. Pumpkin Buttes Pronghorn. The current objective is a postseason estimate of 18,000. Field managers are proposing to change from a numeric objective of 18,000 to the 60% landowner hunter satisfaction objective, and the strategy type would also be private land, given the land owner distribution of this herd unit. The third one is North Black Hills Pronghorn. Here we presently have a postseason objective of 14,000. The field managers would like to manage for a slightly higher objective of 17,000 and maintain the recreational management strategy. Gillette Pronghorn, currently we have objective 11,000. We propose no change there and maintain the recreational strategy. And finally, Bighorn Moose. We currently have a herd unit objective of 5,000 or 500. The managers are proposing to reduce the objective to 1,100 and go with the trend count, the physical counting of moose.
110.
I'm sorry, 110. So rather than estimating a total population size, the managers would propose to do similar to the Jackson moose, where they go out and count on the core habitats and use a objective of 110 with a special management strategy. So those are the 5 herd units that were taken out to the public this spring. Again, keeping with the same format, here is a summary of the public input we received. So for Powder River mule deer, we had meetings in Sheridan and Gillette. We had 5 people show up, all in Sheridan. No one showed up in Gillette. Not quite sure why, a little turnout. But anyhow, not a great public turnout for this one. Landowner was surveyed similar to other herds, had a 23% return rate on the survey.
with 74% of the respondents supporting the reduction of the objectives of 45,000. 11% supported maintaining the present objective of 2,000. Also did the 2014 hunter satisfaction survey in the harvest, vetted in the harvest survey, and 80% were satisfied or very satisfied with their hunting experience, which we equate to mean that they're satisfied with the number of deer we're managing for in this herd unit. For Pumpkin Butte Pronghorn, same meetings with the same turnout, but surveyed 36 landowners in that herd unit with a 19% return rate, and of those, almost 2/3 supported changing this numeric objective to the 60% satisfaction objective. And similar to Powder River Mule Deer, hunter survey indicated a very high satisfaction rate with the numbers that we're managing for in that herd. North Black Hills Pronghorn, a few additional meetings were held for this herd unit, and we did have better attendance at 48 total. Publics at 10. Landowners were surveyed with 29%. Response rate, 75% of the landowners surveyed supported the increase from 14 to 17,000, and the 2014 hunter harvest survey also indicated a very, very high satisfaction rate with the existing animal numbers in Black Hills Pronghorn herd unit. Gillette Pronghorn, again, low public turnout. Landowner surveys had a 37% return rate on those. Almost 2/3 supported maintaining the existing objective of 11,000, and again, a very high hunter satisfaction rate for this. And finally, Bighorn Moose. Low public turnout for the meetings that were held in the region. They did. Our managers talked with Forest Service. Most of these, or all of these moose, primarily reside on Forest Service land. About 84% at least of the occupied habitat is on Forest Service. And in discussions with the Bighorn National Forest in changing the objective to a trend count, they were in support of the trend count objective at a level of 110 animals. Those are the 5 herds that were discussed with our publics in the Sheridan region. And again, here's the chart, the table showing the quotes. Take questions.
President Price. Scott, the excuse me, the 110 on the Bighorn Moose, is that an actual count to date? Was it close to it, or is it?
My understanding, yes. Presently, that's pretty close to what.
It's kind of what we talked about last week, wasn't it?
Correct.
Yes.
And that's both. That's all hunt areas combined. So both sides, the east and the west side of the Bighorn Mountains combined. So that would be the 3-year running average. Just trying to manage at least or at least 110 total animals.
Other questions? Frank?
Scott, how many other herds of any type do we have where we have a satisfaction quotient set as the herd objective in the statewide?
You know, President Price, Commissioner Frank, with this being a fairly new objective type, first rolled out in 2012, I guess off the top of my head, I don't know that I have that figure in front of me, but I don't believe it's very many. It's something that we've gone to only in those areas where either we're restricted in the ability to collect biological data because of access difficulties, or I guess that's primarily the scenario that would dictate going from a biological or a numeric objective to
back to your slide where you were talking about the pumpkin use problem.
Public.
Sorry. I was looking at it. It shows that you got a better map of that powder mule deer deal. Or?
I could go back to the map that we had, and I'll ask Joe Gilbert to come up and help me identify.
It's what, 17, 18, 19, 20, 23, and 29? 26.
17, 18, 23.
President Price, Commissioner Anselmi, the Powder River Mule Deer Herd Unit is our areas 17, 18, 23, and 26. Basically, 23 and 26 are west of the Powder, and 17 and 18 are east of the Powder.
Where's the city up there? I can't think. Where's like Gillette in this one?
The city of Gillette would be where the red line between 17 and 18 comes down and hits I-90.
Oh, right there.
I see it says you got $45 per dose up there.
Yeah, that's fairly common.
We need to transfer you to another region. Get this.
I don't think they want all of private land and lock gates. So a lot of those deer are, unavailable for harvest.
Are they dispersed through that whole area? Is there one part that's got? I might think about putting up there.
I'm not going to give you any hints for that.
He's retired,
Is that pretty good?
That's postseason. Generally, those rough breaks right along the Powder River, excellent deer habitat.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Commissioners? So, Scott, let's return it to you and give us your proposal.
Okay, President Price, Commissioner. If I may, so the department would like to propose for Powder River Mule Deer an effective of $45,000 postseason for Pumpkin Butte Pronghorn, a change from a numeric to a satisfaction objective of 60%. For North Black Hills Pronghorn, an increase of $3,000 to an effective of $17,000 postseason. For Gillette Pronghorn, we recommend no change, maintaining $11,000 postseason. And for Bighorn Moose, change from a postseason effective of 500 to a trend count of 11 or 110 animals for a trend count objective.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Craig?
Do we need to have a motion to have discussion, or can we have that?
Sure, ask questions. If you have questions, you can ask me no questions.
I think I already asked my questions, so I just have some comments about that.
At this point, I think get a motion for the table.
I'll move we accept these objectives with Sheridan region.
Okay, second.
I'll second it, so that have this discussion.
Thank you. I'm new, but I'm really troubled by the satisfaction objective. It's just, I think we have to have numbers. We have to have something to measure it against, and to measure against a satisfaction. This was suggested by four, as near as I can tell, by 4 of the 7 landowners who took the time to respond. It just seems to me to be kind of a, I love you guys, and I think you worked your butt off to manage the wildlife in Wyoming, but, you know, to change a herd objective from 18,000 to just a satisfaction quotient troubles me. So I could support the motion if we left the pumpkin beach pronghorn objectives as it currently exists, but I'm troubled by having the satisfaction quotient measure our proposed objective for any herd unit in Wyoming, any type of unit.
If I may, President Price, Supervisor Gilbert could maybe add a little local input into this one specifically, maybe it would help, I guess, help us all understand why we're going from a demerit to a satisfaction.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, President Price, Commissioner Crank. Pumpkin Buttes is made up of a single hunter, antelope area 23. It's excellent habitat. It's an antelope factory. We have not been able to manage to that number of 18,000. The population fluctuates greatly above that when conditions are good, and greatly below that when that area experienced severe drought in the early 2000s. Even when we're above, when we felt we were above 18,000, we had landowners that felt they didn't have enough antelope, and were protecting antelope and not allowing access. So it's mostly private land. We have very little influence to maintain 18,000. And the survey results were just in relation to this process. We survey those landowners each and every year. And based on looking at the past 10 to 15 years worth of landowner opinions and attitudes and that sort of thing, they seem to be satisfied, you know, most of the time when that population is well above 18,000, and then dissatisfied when it dropped below that. And we survey the landowners every year. We survey hunters every year, and it just seems like a more reasonable objective to go to, instead of fighting, trying to manage toward that number of 18,000. And we try to, if there's licenses left over there every year, if people want to hunt, they can, if they can find a place. There's just a few, I think 20 or more state sections that are, 18 to 20 is what strikes me, that have public access to them in that area, and then one small little piece of BLM in the northwest corner of it. So if you can't get access, you can't get on a ranch to hunt, even though we have thousands of licenses left over, you know, they go unsold because there's just no place to get on. Does that make any sense?
But, Mr. President, I think I understand the difficulties you're having of managing and setting objectives and trying to sell licenses in those areas. And that doesn't, and I recognize that it doesn't change my, I guess, just a kind of fundamental concern that we would ever manage any wildlife herd to a satisfaction quotient. It's just too squishy for me, I guess, personally. So I thank you for your added info.
Yeah, I think mostly that objective, satisfaction objective, has been used in more private land areas in eastern Wyoming, and principally with
Commissioner Craig. You can start off also a minute. Yeah.
Sure. I would suggest to Mr. Cloud, who I think made the motion, that we that he amend his motion to leave the pumpkin beach pronghorn objective at 18,000 rather than go to the proposed 60% satisfaction objective.
Commissioner Crowder, do you accept that as a friendly amendment?
Yes, I'll.
You're the second for it? Did you second it?
You have to agree to the amendment.
I just want to second. Okay, I'll second it so I can discuss it.
Now we're gonna vote on the amendment to change the 60% satisfaction back to the.
Mr. President, before we call the question, can I ask Joe a question or two?
Yes.
Or Joe or Scott or somebody? With going to 60% satisfaction for the objective versus a hard number objective, does it change the way, I mean, are you still going to fly that antelope bird, classify it or count it? Does this result in a cost savings to the agency going with a 60% satisfaction rate, or do you still fly it?
President Price, Commissioner Culver, we had stopped aerial classifications of pronghorn several years ago and have been doing that from the ground. And I think we would continue doing that one regardless of what the objective is.
I wasn't aware of that. Thank you. In defense of this 60% satisfaction thing, we've been using that with Black Hills elk for a couple of years. And part of that, I know, is the logistics. You know, with that timber and herd that goes from Wyoming to South Dakota and back, it was just physically impossible to count those up. Very difficult and very expensive to try to count those out. In the amount of time that's been used up there, it's worked quite satisfactory. So I'm not against this 60% satisfaction objective.
Because we've discussed it enough, let's vote on the amendment. All in favor of Commissioner Frank's amendment to return to the 18,000, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
How do we come out?
How's this to hold up our hand? Try to get a hold of our hand.
Okay, all in favor, raise your right hand. 2, 3, all opposed? Looks like that should pass. Okay, so we'll amend it to go back to the 18,000. Having amended it to that status, the amended motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Motion passes. We're going to amend that 60% satisfaction back to the original proposal, or the original number. I think it's 18,000.
So, President Price, we're about halfway through. Would you like to take a break now? And
You want to take a break, Commissioner?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Let's make it short. We're kind of running slow, so maybe 10 minutes. Try to get back, please.
Well, you know, he didn't answer my question. He did exactly what I hoped he would. That means nothing.
Nothing.
I guess we've got a quorum here. When you're ready, Scott, go ahead.
President Price, Commissioners, if I could, we'll move to the Green River region. This spring, the Green River managers took 4 big game herd units out for public review. We had the Bags Mule Deer herd unit. Present objective is 18,700. The proposal here is to round that up slightly to an even 19,000. Maintain the postseason objective under special management. Bags Pronghorn presently has a postseason objective of 9,000. We propose no change to that and maintain a recreational management strategy in the Bags herd unit. Bitter Creek Pronghorn. Bitter Creek presently has a objective of 25,000. The proposed objective is a pretty significant reduction to 13,000 postseason and maintain the special management strategy. And Carter Lease Pronghorn presently has a postseason objective of 6,000. We recommend no change in maintaining the recreational management strategy. So if I could, let's just look at the public input that we received over in the Green River region. So for Bags Mule Deer, we had four meetings in various communities. Again, another poor public turnout. We had 9 total people at 4 meetings. Landowner survey for the objective process, we had a 22% response rate. And in both the hunter and sportsman responses of the surveys, very, very high support for that slight adjustment of basically, which on the ground will basically result in no change in management, but numerically we'll manage for 19,000 mule deer in the Bags herd unit. Bags Pronghorn, those same meetings had the same number of publics attend. The landowner survey, again, 22% response rate. But of the limited input we got from our public processes, sportsmen and landowners do support maintaining that objective of 9,000. Bitter Creek, Pronghorn, same scenario, low public turnout. Of the landowners and sportsmen that did reply to our surveys, a little lower landowner support, but very high sportsman support for decreasing the objective. What's going on in Bitter Creek is that's primarily been impacted by the drought, and we've seen just a significant decline in pronghorn productivity in this herd unit over the past decade, at least since 2000. And right now, we're just not maintaining or supporting that many antelope in this herd unit anymore as we did back in the 90s. So field managers feel it's appropriate, at least at this point in time, to reduce objectives fairly significantly from 25,000 down to 13,000. And it seems like the public agrees at this point that we need to manage for a lower number and work to build back up to where we were. The last 2, Carter Lease, again, not a very stellar public response, but we had 16 in attendance at 3 meetings, and rather than surveying, they contacted 22 landowners in person. And overall, there was general support for maintaining the current objective of 6,000 for Carter Lease Pronghorn. And then on this one, the list, for all these herd units, there's a lot of interagency coordination that goes on. And here's just a list of all the different management entities our Green River managers coordinated with and had discussions with as far as these various objectives. So with that, let me go back to the summary page. So for these 5 or 4 big game herd units, the major change would be Bitter Creek pronghorn from 25,000 down to 13,000. I'm happy to answer any questions. I also have
commissioners questions on that.
I don't have a question, just a comment. In that Bitter Creek unit, that's where they did a big horse roundup 2,300 horses this last year. So I'm optimistic that, with less competition down there, that I think that unit's down to 8,000 antelope now is what they counted. So I agree with the recommendation, but it'll be interesting to see in the next few years what happens with all those horses off of the checkerboard down there.
Okay. Do you have any comment on Mark's comment? Does this strike you as something that maybe the wild horses are impacting the habitat?
President Price, the present level of herbivory from horses and the drought definitely reduced overall forage conditions out in that very dry habitat types. With the improving moisture we've had, at least definitely this year and last spring, we're optimistic we can see a turnaround in fawn productivity. We're very hopeful that the combination of some improved weather, reduction in wild horses, yes, we're remaining optimistic we're going to see a rebound, hopefully, in the near future of this.
Okay, following that with a question. By putting this 13,000 in there, are we going to put a ceiling on to it? The reason I say this is, we can manage down like this. It always looks like we're working to an objective, but all we're doing is managing an objective.
No, and I think as Commissioner Anselmi indicated, presently we're documenting accounting for about 8,000 pronghorns, so we're hopeful that by giving us that 5,000 cushion, that gives us a target to increase pronghorn densities in this herd unit. And at the end of this next 5-year period, then we can reevaluate and hopefully, in a perfect world, have another 5,000 increase and manage for 18,000. So.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions, commissioners? Commissioner Crank?
Scott, how are we advertising these public meetings? I mean, I assume we put it in the paper, it's on our website.
Exactly. Some of the pretty traditional sources of outlets. I think part of the problem, or one of the challenges, I guess, we're facing is we're having the traditional season-setting meetings, and then following up in many locales with a second set of meetings. And I think in some communities, our publics are getting meetinged out, and they're very because this follows on the heels or after the traditional season-setting meetings, they're opting out of attending these. So we've been discussing it, and so part of what some of the region did was roll it all together, do it in combination, but make it very clear that we're talking about 2 separate things. We're talking about a 2015 hunting season and a herd unit objective process for the next 5 years. While they go together, we want input on both separately. So.
And I assume if you did that, you were able to glean more comments from sportsmen.
Yes.
On herd objectives as well as what they want to see with the
current season. Exactly. Yeah. And we're learning. I mean, so this is the 4th year that we've done this intensive public outreach, and we're going to adapt. We're going to figure out the best way to get the most public input. As you aptly pointed out, a landowner survey where you get less than 20% response rate is a very, very small sample size. Holding 4 or 5 public meetings and having half a dozen people show up is very low response rate as well.
Yeah. Any more questions of Scott at this point? Well, Scott, go ahead and make your proposal. And
okay. Okay, so the department would recommend for bags mule deer just a slight rounding of the proposed objective to 19,000 postseason. Bags pronghorn, no change at 9,000 postseason. A significant reduction for Bitter Creek pronghorn at this time from 25 to 13,000. We would maintain the postseason objective type with special management. And then for Carter Lease pronghorn, propose no change, remaining at 6,000 postseason with a recreational strategy.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President, I make a motion we approve the Green River Region herd objectives.
It's been moved by Mark.
I second the motion, Mr. President.
Moved and seconded by David. Discussion? Okay, hearing no discussion. Call there. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, if we could move to the Laramie region. Our Laramie regional managers had 4 herd units they took to the public. You can see them here. We had the 1 elk herd for the state this year, the Shirley Mountain elk. Our current objective is 800. We propose no change for that herd unit. It's a midwinter trend, and it's under special management. For Sheep Mountain mule deer, this is one of our mule deer initiative herds. We took a lot of public input during our MDI process. It's felt at this time, given the lower numbers of deer in the Sheep Mountain herd unit, a reduction from 15,000 to 10,000 was proposed. Postseason, maintaining the recreational management strategy. Shirley Mountain mule deer, also a reduction from 10,000 to 7,500 postseason with recreational strategy. And then Southwest Wyoming white-tailed deer. And here we have another proposal for changing from a numeric objective of 4,000 to the satisfaction survey type of 60% satisfaction. Based on public input, public review, go through species by species for Shirley Mountain elk. We had five public meetings, 25 publics attended. They also held follow-up meetings following the first round where we had a little better attendance, overwhelming public support for maintaining Shirley Mountain trend count objective of 800. Landowner surveys also indicated 3/4 felt that objective was appropriate. For Sheep Mountain mule deer, as you can see there, we had multiple meetings, 80 people attended in 5 different communities. A 22% landowner response rate on surveys. Landowners, almost 2/3 were dissatisfied with the number of deer that we have on the ground right now. And based on the hunter harvest survey from 2014, only about half were satisfied or very satisfied with the hunting experience, which we infer to mean correlates to number of deer on the ground. Shirley Mountain mule deer, 19 people attended 3 different meetings. They also conducted 5 follow-up meetings, and based on the public input, there was support to reduce that objective from 10 to 7,500. 31% landowner response rate with 53% satisfied with the current numbers, 47, so almost a 50-50 split on satisfaction from the landowner survey. And then finally, the Southeast Wyoming white-tailed deer. Again, 17 people from the public attended the 4 meetings we had. Southeast Wyoming, with follow-up meetings, a little better attended. And based on that input, there was support changing from a numeric to the satisfaction survey, though the region did comment that basically they had too few of surveys returned to make any kind of meaningful analysis for this herd unit. So with that, since we had the discussion just a little bit ago on the satisfaction survey, perhaps I could have Supervisor Rick King come up and kind of describe for the Southeast Wyoming whitetail deer herd unit why the proposal is to go from a numeric to a satisfaction survey. So maybe we can clear some of that up as well.
President Price, Director Talbot, and Commissioners. Southeast Wyoming whitetail deer herd is a large herd unit. We have a lot of hunt areas that are combined. It's been tough for us to manage toward a numeric objective because it's very difficult to come up with a reliable population estimate. We border 2 states. We have whitetail that occupy primarily private land, and just due to the nature of whitetails in general, it's tough for us to collect data that leads us to a reliable population estimate. And so therefore we've gone with what we think is the next best alternative, which is a landowner and sportsman satisfaction objective. Landowners dictate a lot of what we do with whitetails in that southeast corner of the state. They're the ones that control access, and so we felt like if they were generally pleased with the numbers and sportsmen were pleased, then we're probably on the right track, and it's more realistic for us to take that approach than to try to guesstimate at a number that we have little to no faith in as a management strategy.
Thanks, Rick. And here's the map Rick was referring to that shows the large geographic area of this herd unit, basically all of southeast Wyoming.
Okay. Any questions for Scott, Rick?
Rick, is that whitetail herd unit down there growing, do you think?
Well, it depends. Last couple of years it's been up and down, and in some places locally it's up and then locally it's down. We've had some EHD outbreaks that affected some localized populations, and then in some places they've done pretty well. So it's fluctuated a little bit.
I guess at this point, have any other questions from the commission? If you would, Scott, go ahead and make your proposal.
Okay, so the department would recommend for Shirley Mountain elk, no change, an 800 animal mid-winter trend count objective. Sheep Mountain, a reduction from 15 to 10,000 for postseason objective. Shirley Mountain, a similar decrease from 10 to 7,500 postseason. And as Rick just explained, for southeast Wyoming whitetail deer, going from a numeric objective to the 60% landowner and hunter satisfaction objective.
Okay, thank you. We get a motion to put this on the table?
I so move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. You get that, Sherry? Okay. Motion on the table. Commission discussion. Pat?
Mr. President, I'm going to be consistent and say I'm just still troubled by a satisfaction quotient herd objective. So I have no reason to disagree with any of the other proposed changes, but just disagree with that being used to set a herd objective. So.
That's any more comment?
No, that's my comment.
You're not dissatisfied enough to make a motion amendment?
I'm Mr. Cloud is down there. I don't know if he'd.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you the stare here in a minute.
Okay, we've heard that. No more discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Scott, thanks.
Okay, so let's move on to the Lander region. And so for Lander, for our managers over in Lander, they were quite ambitious. So we have I think 9 total herd units that they took to the public this spring. So with that, we will run through these real quick. So DuBois moose, the proposal here is to go from a numeric objective of 400, and since this is quite a small moose population, the managers are proposing to go to the limited opportunity objective type, basically that's listed in your handout there for moose limited opportunity, where they would manage on a 5-year running average for basically harvest, age of harvested bulls, and a hunter effort of 10 days per animal harvested. Again, as with all of our other moose herds, the management strategy for moose is categorized as special. Beaver rim pronghorn, current objective of 25,000 postseason. The department proposes no change. Red desert pronghorn, current objective of 15,000 post-hunt. The department recommends no change. Iron Springs pronghorn, current objective of 12,000, and again, the department recommends no change, maintaining there at 12,000. Second page, we have DuBois mule deer, current objective of 10,000. Department proposes a slight decrease to 8,000 postseason with a recreational strategy. And this is the last, I promise, this is the last satisfaction objective of the day. Chain Lakes mule deer, 6,500 is the present objective. Managers would like to propose the satisfaction survey for this one in particular. This is a very low density deer herd. It's very difficult. It's actually cost prohibitive to survey with aircraft. It's just a very, very low density of deer spread across miles and miles of sagebrush habitat. And the years that the folks have tried to survey this, sample sizes have been so low, there's really no confidence in even trying to come up with a trend count because of such small variable sample sizes based on deer distribution in this herd unit. Sweetwater mule deer, present objective is 6,000 animals. A proposal to reduce that to 4,500 with the postseason objective type. And South Wind River, one of the mule deer initiative herds that we've had public working group providing input on this one. Proposal is to slightly reduce the objective from 13,000 to 11,000 postseason, maintaining the recreational management strategy. And finally, beaver rim mule deer. Present objective is 2,600, and we would propose to maintain that with the postseason objective. Summarizing all the public input that was gathered and analyzed. For DuBois moose, we had a meeting up in DuBois. We had 12 publics attend. We also talked to landowners, BLM Forest Service, the DuBois Outfitters Association. And based on the input the lander managers received, there is no opposition from going from the 400 post-hunt objective to the basically the harvest parameters, the limited opportunity moose objective. For beaver rim pronghorn, had 38 people attend 3 meetings. 19 landowners were contacted in person. Of the 19 landowners, we did have one was opposed to the objective, stating it was too high. No additional opposition, though, from the other contacts the department made for maintaining the 25,000 objective. Red Desert pronghorn had meetings in Rollins and Lander with 36 in attendance. 7 landowners were contacted in person by our local managers, and no opposition to maintaining this herd at the present 15,000 post-hunt objective. Iron Springs pronghorn, Rollins and Saratoga held meetings with 34 in attendance, 14 landowners, and no opposition to maintaining the 12,000 post-hunt objective. DuBois mule deer, again, surveyed 12 folks, or visited with 12 folks up in DuBois at the meeting, as well as landowners, BLM Forest Service, the DuBois Outfitters Association, and they had no objections to reducing that from 10,000 to 8,000 animals for DuBois mule deer. Chain lynx mule deer, I described that just a little bit ago. This is the one talked to or had the meeting in Rollins. 22 people in attendance, 5 landowners were consulted, and there was, based on that input, there was no opposition from the numeric change to the satisfaction objective change. And finally, Sweetwater mule deer. Meetings held in Riverton, Lander, and Jeffrey City with 38 people, 14 landowners. Again, one landowner concerned with too many deer. And as I mentioned before, this is the Mule Deer Initiative Working Group herd that's been meeting for the past year and a half. Provided a lot of public input from the various meetings that were held with the working group, and there is no major opposition to the region's proposal to reduce that objective down to 4,500 animals post-hunt. South Wind River is the second Mule Deer Initiative herd unit that the region's analyzing with the public. Meetings, landowners, and basically all in all, no major opposition to the reduced objective proposal of 11,000 post-hunt. And the last but not least is the Beaver Rim mule deer, and as you can see there, no major opposition to the region proposal to maintain that herd at 2,600 animals. So with that, I'd entertain any questions you may have on these 9 herd units, and I can toggle back and forth between the 2 pages if you'd like to talk about specific herds.
Commission, questions? Mark?
A long way to my question. How long have you seen that? What's that deal that moose get in their carotid artery? What's it, a parasite or something?
Right, the carotid artery.
Yeah. When did you first start seeing that?
Well, it goes back. I guess we first started picking it up in surveys in the last 10 years, I guess would be fair to say. So there was a survey documented, I believe, back in the 70s, 73, where they found the moose that they surveyed then did not have it. And now here we have, last 10 years, we've been finding it in about half of the moose that we've looked at, on average.
The reason I asked that is reading this DuBois moose thing, and since there's no mooses forever or whatever, it says in 2001 they had some moose that died and they never did figure out what they died of, and they don't know how many moose are up there, and I don't know what. Not many moose up there evidently, huh?
Again, and I would characterize it probably similar to what Jackson moose has experienced, where at least over the last 10 to 20 years there's been a significant reduction in moose densities in that herd unit.
How do you do your flight budgets? How's that? Or do you know how much you spend on flight budgets total for all antelope, deer, moose, sheep?
Yeah, each region's given an annual flight budget that they partition amongst the species. They prioritize what where they want to spend their dollars and collect that information. Absolutely. So, to be honest, there's not enough money to go around to do everything every year, so they have to prioritize and do. In some areas, we have to do alternate year surveys so that we can at least every other year cover all of our big game herds with our aerial surveys.
Just for a round number, do you know how much we spent total for the state with I'm sure it's a lot of money, but Tracy. statewide?
Statewide.
That's chopper and fixed wing?
Oh, correct.
And what was it? I guess you've got probably the same hours, but the price has gone up or something, probably.
Correct. We're trying to add about a 5% inflation factor to account for fuel costs that have been just every year they just gradually creep up on us. So we have, the last several years, we have been able to at least keep up with about a 3 to 5% adjustment to account for ad fuel prices increasing. So we've been able to at least maintain our effective hours that way, but we have not seen a major increase at all.
Thanks.
Any more questions from the commission? Okay, with that, I'd entertain a motion to put this on the floor. Scott, Scott, go ahead and make your proposal.
Okay, so for these 9 herds, 2 pages worth of summary tables here. So Du Bois Moose, the department would propose to change from the numeric objective of 400 to the limited opportunity objective, where we're going to monitor on 5-year running average of average age of bull harvested and hunter effort. Beaver Rim Pronghorn, no change. Maintain the postseason objective of 25,000. Red Desert Pronghorn, no change. Maintain 15,000 postseason. Iron Springs Pronghorn, no change. Maintain 12,000 postseason. Du Bois Mule Deer, proposed to reduce from the current objective of 10,000 down to 8,000, maintaining the postseason recreational management strategy. Chain Links, currently we have an objective of 6,500 postseason, and the proposal would be to change to the 60% satisfaction survey for both landowners and hunters. Sweetwater Mule Deer, proposed to reduce the objective from 6,000 to 4,500 postseason. Southwind River Mule Deer, a slight reduction from 13,000 to 11,000 postseason. And finally, Beaver Rim Mule Deer, no change. Maintain the postseason objective of 2,600.
Okay. Thank you for your proposal. You get a motion to.
One more question, if I may. Mr.
Okay.
President. Scott, is this going to be our first crack at using the Moose limited objective or limited opportunity as a proposed objective in the state? Will this be our trial run on that?
Yes. Trying to remember if we did that in Targhee. We did it in Zorga too. Zorga and Targhee Moose, I think, already have it. So
okay.
But it's as I explained to Commissioner Crank, these are fairly new. 2012 was the first year we rolled these out.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do, is get him softened up. He's getting coiled up like a spring up here, you know. So.
Okay, any more questions? Then? You know,
I would move that we accept Land Region's recommendation based on their total public input, that they were satisfied. It looked to me like there was no objection to any of this, and I would propose that we, or move that we accept the Land Region's objectives.
As Scott's proposed.
As it's proposed.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, Mark and Selmy seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay.
And I did get some more updated numbers for you, Commissioner Anselmi. So last year's flight budget was $686,000.
Thank you.
So our last region for this year's cycle is Casper. Similar to Lander, they were quite busy. They took 7 total herd units out to the public and gathered public input on these 7 big game herd units. So if I could, let's just run through these. So for North Converse Pronghorn, the current objective is 28,000 and the proposal is no change. We've maintained the postseason objective of 28,000. Rattlesnake pronghorn 12,000. No change. Proposed to maintain 12,000 postseason. Black Hills white-tailed deer. Our current objective is 40,000. Our managers propose to increase that postseason objective to 55,000 to account for the increased productivity and increase in white-tailed deer numbers that we've seen in the Black Hills recently. Black Hills mule deer, present objective of 20,000. Managers propose to increase this to 30,000, also to reflect the increased productivity and desire to manage for more mule deer in the Black Hills. Rattlesnake mule deer, present objective of 5,500 postseason, and we would propose no change to maintain that at 5,500. Bates Hole Hat 6. This is Casper region's mule deer initiative herd that they're working on with the public and based on public input and the current status of Bates Hole Hat 6 mule deer herd. Proposal would be to reduce the postseason population objective from 12,000 to 8,000 and maintain or manage under a special management strategy. And finally, North Converse mule deer, present objective is 9,100. There'd be a slight rounding down to 9,000 just to round it off on the ground. That would not result in any major change in management strategy. So we'd propose to manage for 9,000 postseason under the special strategy. So looking at the public input we received in the Casper region, North Converse pronghorn meeting was held in Douglas with a small public turnout. 70 landowners surveyed with a 27% response rate. Of the survey respondents, a very high, large proportion would propose or would support maintaining that existing objective of 28,000. And based on the public's comments, no opposition to maintaining that at 28,000. For rattlesnake pronghorn, had one meeting in Casper. You can see the small attendance. Fairly high response rate from landowners, 41%, and 59% of the landowners felt there were too few of pronghorn in the rattlesnake herd unit, while 41% indicated they felt numbers were about in line of what they would support. Overall, no significant opposition to maintaining that herd at 12,000. Rattlesnake mule deer, same meeting in Casper, same turnout, and again, same survey of landowners, 41% response rate. Here we had 71% of the respondents feeling there was responding there are too few mule deer in the rattlesnake, and 29% felt about right. So on this one, the respondents were split almost 50-50 between maintaining versus increasing this objective. Here I just combined both Black Hills mule deer and whitetail responses, since they're basically overlapping same herd unit geographically with two different species. 4 meetings were held: Sundance, Hewlett, Newcastle, Gillette. Pretty good turnout, relatively speaking, 56 people in attendance. The managers in Casper region did an outstanding job surveying landowners. As you can see, they sent out 450 surveys with a response rate of over 50%, so 235 respondents. And you can see here, so 54% of the landowners who have mule deer on their property believe mule deer numbers are currently about right. 42% responded that the mule deer numbers were too low, and 4% felt too high. Similarly, for whitetail, for landowners that have whitetail on their property, 52% believed whitetail numbers were currently about right, 35% said too low, 13% too high. And you can see here, in addition to the landowners, our field managers coordinated with BLM and Black Hills National Forest and the Indian Cara Grazing Association to gather input from them. So the proposed objective represents, or the proposed objective changes represent about a 50% increase for Black Hills mule deer and a 38% increase for Black Hills white-tailed deer. These proposed changes also reflect our new population estimate techniques, which we feel are a better reflection of the actual deer numbers on the ground, and also commensurate with landowners' desires for deer densities on their properties. Overall, I think it's safe to say we have general support for increasing both mule deer and white-tailed deer objectives. Mule deer increased to 30,000, white-tailed to 55,000. For the Bates Hole Hat 6, one meeting in Casper, in addition to, this is the Mule Deer Initiative Local Working Group herd unit. They've also been meeting for over a year, and through their discussions, they reached consensus as a group for lowering the objective from 12 to 8,000. As you can see, another good landowner response rate of 45%. Basically, a little different split here. About 43% of the landowners agreed with lowering the objective. 24% said they would support no change, and about a third had no opinion. And one note here for this herd unit, it's been for the last 30 years of collecting data for this herd unit, only once has the bait hole, has our managers been able to achieve or estimate that herd at 12,000, only once over the last 30 years. North Converse had a meeting in Douglas and surveyed landowners. 69% of the landowners did support the proposal for basically maintaining a slight rounding of this objective to 9,000, and no major oppositions for this objective. So that is the summary of public input for these 7 herd units. Once again, I'd be happy to field any questions. We also have Supervisor Brian Olson here. Do you have any specific questions you'd like to ask him?
You know, earlier this year at the season setting things, we had a kind of a go around with that northeast corner of the state up there, Black Hills. They feel pretty good about this.
Based on the summary that I saw and put together, I'd say they did, but I'm going to defer to Brian here because he was right there at the meetings. So, Brian?
Okay.
Mr. President Price, I don't know if anybody's all going to be satisfied up there. As you can see on our survey results, you're about 50-50. Right now, we kind of have a feeling that 50-50 is about where we should be, and that's what our objective proposals are basically right now. We'll be at those objectives this year. So we'll find out after this year what some of our landowners think about having that many deer in the Black Hills, most certainly.
Will the habitat support them?
Yes, I believe so. As long as Mother Nature continues to take care of them up there, I think it'll be fine.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any questions?
Richard? No, I have none.
Okay. With that said, you go ahead and make your proposal, Scott, and we'll consider it.
Okay, so like I said, we have 7 herd units in the Casper region that the public commented on. So the proposal would be to, for North Converse pronghorn, to maintain the current objective, postseason objective 28,000. Also maintain rattlesnake pronghorn, current objective level of 12,000. Black Hills white-tailed deer, increase that objective from 40,000 to 55,000 postseason. For Black Hills mule deer, increase that postseason objective from 20 to 30,000. For rattlesnake, mule deer, maintain the present objective of 5,500 postseason. For the Bates Hole Hat 6 mule deer herd unit, decrease that postseason objective from 12,000 to 8,000. And for the North Converse mule deer herd, the slight rounding down to 9,000 animals postseason.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, you get a motion?
Mr. President, I move we approve these herd unit objectives.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion among the commission? No question? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes.
President Price, Commissioners, that concludes our 35 herd units that were taken to the public this year. And if you have any other overall questions or comments, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, we've achieved our objective.
Okay, well, thank you, Scott. I'm glad you hung in there. Any other questions or anything from the commission? We have one other thing. I think that ends this, except a call to the public. Anybody in the public want to speak to any subject that we've discussed?
Good job, Scott.
Having no response, we get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Been moved and seconded to adjourn. Meeting's adjourned for today. Thank you.